The ending of Stranger Things represents the end of an era. This whole final season was a major event, and I don't think we're going to see something like this again for a while. But before we begin, let me just warn you. Spoilers, obviously. If you haven't watched the final Stranger Things episode yet, what are you doing here? Go watch it and come back later. I'll be waiting. Anyways, the year of 2025 just ended, and with it comes to an end what is probably the biggest TV show of the decade. In 2016, out of nowhere comes a little show about a boy who goes missing under weird circumstances and his friends and family going after him and finding a bunch of strange things. That quickly became Netflix's biggest success, and I mean big success. The platform made this show its whole personality, and the fans did that as well. And can you blame them? The first season was spectacular. It was the closest thing to perfect television we had in years, full of good references, and the story was so captivating. No wonder people loved it. And the music, oh my god, the music. It sets the tone perfectly, the opening theme is such a banger. The creators of the show, the Duffer Brothers, planned this story to be only one season, that's why the first chapter is so clean. And I have to say, if Stranger Things had ended in the first season like it was meant to be, it would easily be a strong candidate to the best one-season show of all time. The show masterfully takes advantage of the Netflix binge-watching model and tells us a story that feels like an 8-hour-long movie. We have 9 main characters, which is already a dangerous storytelling decision by itself, divided in 3 separate storylines. Each group goes around and do their own little investigation and come together in the end to connect the pieces of the puzzle and save the day. Believe me when I tell you, it's so easy to mess up with this format. There's too much people involved and a lot of details to pay attention to, but Stranger Things Season 1 is a masterclass of pacing. The way they tell this story is so easy to follow and feels so comforting even for a horror mystery show, and I believe the main reason for this is the first season's greatest charm, proportion. This story is simple. There is no saving the world, no international conspiracy, no villain trying to take over or destroy the world. It's just this intimate little story about a missing boy in a small peaceful town. And the way the story ends is just as perfect. The important part of the mystery, Will's disappearance, is solved. They found him. And the threat, which is the Demogorgon, is also solved. They killed it. We don't have all the answers and we don't need them. I don't care what the hell is the Upside Down, where it came from. I don't even care about Eleven's origin. This story is complete. But the higher you rise, the harder you fall. The Duffer Brothers said that if they were to continue the show, they would like to create new stories in different locations and periods of time. But Netflix pushed them into making a new season with the same characters, stretching that intimate little story into something bigger. And with that, the show kinda lost the magic through the years, slowly getting worse as time went by. To be fair, as I said before, the first season was perfect. So it's pretty hard to meet the standards even if you are the one who invented said standards. But even though it got worse, it was still very good. I really like season 2. The story was still very well told, and the best thing about this chapter is the character development. Steve, who was just some bully, becomes the fan favorite he is today. His redemption arc creating a bond with Dustin is so charming, I love this duo. We begin to have the experience of growing up with the characters, which makes the public even more involved. I was a teenager when the show first came out, and now I'm an adult, but we'll get back to that point later. This season feels like a natural sequel to the story told before. It's consistent with season 1 in terms of tone and narrative, but some of the flaws start to show here. The writing, for example, has some stupid ideas. The big bad is even bigger this time, with the Mind Flayer, which is the queen to this hive mind that all of the monsters are a part of and apparently Will is connected to somehow. But this villain doesn't make much sense to me. It's not very clear why it wants what it wants. Most of the time it looks like an irrational creature with no motivation other than a killer instinct, like a bigger version of the Demogorgon. Which is fine for a short story, but if we are going bigger, we need a villain with personality and motivation, a threat the audience will feel connected to in some way. Speaking of connection, Eleven is not with the other kids this season, and I think this was a mistake. She doesn't work very much as a character by herself, she needs the other kids, and her arc in this season is super slow. She spends an awful amount of time going nowhere, only to produce the first bad episode this show ever had. Episode 7, The Lost Sister. We all remember this one, but wish to forget. The episode was so bad that everyone, even the writers, pretended it never happened and never addressed anything regarding to that again. Until season 5, we'll get there. I understand why she had to go on this little side quest. If she was reunited with the others too soon, the problems would be solved too quickly and we wouldn't have a season. But still, there are other ways to do that. Also, why the fuck is Dustin raising a baby Demogorgon? He's too smart for that. I get it, he's a kid, but he's like the smartest kid ever born. He, above anyone else, would know the dangers of having a pet Demogorgon, especially when it starts to grow insanely fast and eats his mother's cat. But it's okay, because this storyline is very important later on, right? Wrong! It has no impact on the story or the characters involved whatsoever. It just creates a Deus Ex Machina at the end, and then we move on with our lives, and it's never addressed again. If anything, this shenanigans only creates a new plot hole, implying that the Demogorgons can have a conscience outside of the Mind Flayer's hive mind, because why else would Dart recognize Dustin? But I will save myself some sanity, do the same thing the Duffer Brothers did, and not think about this ever again. The amount of characters issue starts to present itself here. This season introduces some new people to join the team. Steve became one of the good guys and the main character. We have Max to take the place of the female kid in Eleven's absence, and Billy to take the place of the school bully in Steve's absence. And also we have Bob. He is introduced to us as this easily lovable character just to be killed off by the end of the season. Oh, almost forgot, the best character this show has ever created! Murray. He is the quote-unquote comic relief, so every single line that comes out of his mouth sounds like he's in a sitcom. He puts so much effort into being funny with no success if you ask me. I hate Murray so much. And besides Bob, no one important dies. The main cast was already kinda crowded, but it's getting bigger, and the writers don't know what to do with everyone like they did in the first season. Well, I hope that stops here. The second season ends with the gang being able to exercise will and Eleven closing the gate to the Upside Down. The Mind Flayer is still alive, but it's locked out of our world. Now keep these words fondly, seems like something big is about to happen. This show is already too long at this point. There, I said it. The writers became too aware of their own success and now they're going for the big spectacle. They falling into the mistake of convincing themselves that each season needed to be bigger than the last, and now that charming intimacy of the story I mentioned earlier is completely gone. The show lost interest in the mystery and the horror of its original ideas, giving place to this action comedy that looks like a Taika Waititi Marvel movie. This season is so stupid. Don't get me wrong, I still like the show at this point, but the tone shifts so hard it's impossible not to notice. I mean, look at a shot from the first 2 seasons and take a look at season 3, it doesn't look like the same TV show. Everything is bright and colorful now, and it looks gorgeous, but you can barely say you're still watching Stranger Things. And it's not just about the looks, I wouldn't mind if the show looked like an episode of Paw Patrol but still had the same brilliant storytelling and character development. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You will never guess who's the villain of the season. You watch the show, this is just a recap/analysis, you don't need to guess, you already know the answer. It's the Russians! You know, because the show takes place in the 80s and all of the 80s movies had Russia as the bad guy, so makes a shit ton of sense putting them in the game, right? Remember how character development was the best thing about season 2? Well, they kinda stopped doing that now. But it's unfair to say that the characters are still the same and did not change, cause they did change. They're not the same. They're all bad now. Are you familiar with the concept of Flanderization? It's when the writers choose a strong personality trait from a character and reduce them to this one chosen trait, making them less and less complex as time goes on. It's called Flanderization because of Ned Flanders from The Simpsons. In the first season he was just a normal guy who happened to be religious, but in the most recent ones he's a religious lunatic stereotype. And the Flanderization goes hard in Stranger Things. Nancy is the badass, Dustin is the goofy, funny little guy, Mike is now an absolute asshole for some reason, especially to Eleven, Will is the closeted gay one, and Eleven is the superhero. Really, she spends her entire screen time walking around and screaming with her hands up and her nose bleeding. Worse than that is Joyce, that poor woman is now the town's crazy lady. She proved more than once that her instincts almost never fail, especially when it comes to upside down stuff, and people still don't believe her when she says something is wrong. But no one was done dirtier than Hopper. In the last 2 seasons, Hopper went from this emotionally closed off, depressed man trying to move on with his life after the death of his daughter, to a man who knows how to express his emotions and deal with them, or at least he's learning. He became Eleven's father, and caring for another child helped him cope with his loss. In season 3 though, he not only unlearns everything I just said, but he gets way worse. They turn him into this giant cartoonish, macho, aggressive asshole figure who is always angry and is rude to everybody for no reason and likes to shoot things and solves everything with a good old punch in the face. If the Russians are the villains like in the 80s movies, Hopper is now the 80s action hero. They reset his character arc so hard it's unbelievable. I feel so much for him cause he was my favorite character and now he is gone beyond repair. Also, we have some new faces in the main cast, cause why not? Now we have Robin, a great addition to the Steve Dustin dynamic. This iconic duo is now a trio and I loved it.
How many children are you friends with?
Another new important character is Erica, Lucas's little sister that was put in the show for 2 reasons. One, to play with the sassy black woman stereotype, whose personality is nothing besides being sassy. And 2, to join the iconic trio later on and completely ruin it with her sassiness. Erica gets better in the next seasons, but right now for me, she's like Murray too. This character is so bland, I really dislike her. Okay, so let's count again. In the main group we now have Eleven, Will, Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Max, Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, Robin, Erica, Hopper and Joyce. That's a total of 13 main characters. And I'm only counting the main characters cause Billy and Mike's mom Karen, for instance, also appear in all 8 episodes of the season. And obviously there's more important characters here and there. That's absolutely insane. And also Murray is still here for a couple of episodes, but he should have died off screen for all I care. Speaking of dying, I forgot to mention another new character, Alexei. He's introduced to us as this easily lovable character just to be killed off by the end of the season. And besides Alexei, no one important dies. Where have I said this before? Oh wait, no. Billy is also dead now. He sacrifices himself to save Eleven from the Mind Flayer, and for some reason I will never understand, everyone treat this as a redemption. Just because he did something good in the end of his life doesn't mean he's a nice person now. I mean, he's no person now, he's dead, but you get the point. This dude spent his entire screen time either being racist to Lucas or an abusive asshole to Max. But just because he is being controlled by the Mind Flayer most of season 3, people seem to forget everything that came before. A redemption arc has to be, you know, an arc. It has to be some piece of story, a journey that the characters go through to find his redeeming qualities and learn how to be better. And Billy never moved one finger in that direction. I don't get why people love him so much just because he did one good thing. I understand the importance of what he did, but that moment was the only moment that he truly cared for Max. The rest of the time he was just an awful person. Stop pretending that he wasn't. Let's name names and address this situation for what it really was. An emotional pivot for Max. Billy's death was never about Billy. It's actually a gigantic plot point for Max's arc. In my opinion, this is where she starts to be the best character of this show, but we'll get there. Let's circle back to life's ending. The lack of important deaths in this show made it fall into the bottomless pit of zero stakes. Everything is a joke now, you don't fear for anyone's life because everyone is cartoonishly invincible. It's actually kinda funny at this point. I agree that a lot of people die in this show, yes, but the body count doesn't have any emotional impact for the audience, and this action comedy aesthetic I mentioned before only makes it worse. I didn't watch Thor Ragnarok fearing that Thor or Loki would die, you know? And please forgive me for this, but the never-ending story scene is the perfect example of this issue. Don't get me wrong, it's cute and fun, but this is not a cute and fun show, and that definitely wasn't supposed to be a cute and fun moment. They're making jokes on the verge of death. Seems like they know they're not gonna die anyway, so why should I believe that? This season ends up being nothing more than forgettable. The main reason for that is that the show tells us everything beforehand. We don't get to discover anything with the characters. We see everything that's happening in episode 1 and then spend the next 8 hours watching a blend version of our favorite characters finding all of that out. Let me tell you a secret. A mystery is only interesting when you don't have all the information. Following these people while they figure stuff out feels like having planned a surprise party. The only thing that's left for you to do is to wait for the birthday person to find the party, but you get anxious and you really wanna tell, but you have to let them find the party on their own. Also, the party is for someone you don't really like, the party itself ends up being really lame and stupid and you have to silently let that happen for 8 hours of your life. That's Stranger Things Season 3. Okay, hear me out. I know everyone loves Season 4. Some people even say it's the best chapter of the story, even better than Season 1. And I think these people are clinically insane. Please drop your stones and let me explain. Season 4 makes a lot of changes from Season 3 and the changes are good. They try to go back to the darker tone from before. The story is taking itself seriously again, but it doesn't feel like the same story anymore. Do you know why the Roman Empire fell? I know you do. You think a lot about that, don't you? Oversimplifying, it fell because it got too big to handle. I know there's a lot of factors, but one of the main reasons is that it got so big that it was impossible to manage and it just collapsed. And for me, Stranger Things is the Roman Empire of television. This show is now a big spectacle, the visuals are on point and the story, as I said before, only gets bigger. They're still too aware of their own popularity and are still trying to appeal to every single audience niche in the face of the earth. They want literally everyone watching this show, and that's a big mistake, because if you know a thing or two about marketing, you know that one of the most important parts of any business is knowing clearly who your customer is. And if you have common sense, you know that it's impossible to make everyone happy, so why are they trying to? Money. The answer is money. This season is so long. It's the longest season of the show with 9 episodes, but the shortest one is 1 hour and 3 minutes long. The longest one is the last one with 2.5 hours, which means that this season has a total runtime of 12 hours and 41 minutes. That's 761 minutes. God, that's a lot of minutes. I think Season 5 feels the longest, but it's only 10 hours and 8 minutes long, and we are not talking about Season 5 yet, so sit back down and listen. There is a lot happening at the same time. We have that well-known storytelling structure of different people going on their own adventures and coming together at the end to save the day. This time we have the Hawkins storyline, where we are introduced to Vecna, the big villain of the show. He starts to kill some teenagers because of reasons. The other storyline is in California, where Eleven is now powerless, living with the Byers, and Joyce finds out that, surprise surprise, Hopper is alive. So she goes after him with this buffoon, which leads to the third storyline in Russia, but no one cares enough to remember what happened in this one. At this point our characters are still a blend version of themselves, checking all the boxes in the mystery/action/adventure stereotype list. Will is still gay, Eleven is a superhero, but now with no powers, Nancy is Rambo, Dustin is a comic relief, you get the idea. Oh, and Mike's is still here. I almost forgot about him since he is doing absolutely nothing since Season 2, but he's not that much of an asshole now, so good for him, I guess. Too bad he has no purpose anymore. Speaking of purpose, Jonathan is a California stoner. And that's it for him. He has now a California stoner friend named Argyle, which is just another one-note character who exists only to make the same joke about being high over and over again until the world explodes. Cause we still don't have enough people doing nothing on screen. Max hasn't done much up until now, but this season it's totally hers. This is her moment. And not because the other characters are kinda lame. I mean, they are. But she is actually very good. She watched Billy die in the last season and that hit her harder than anyone could expect. She is now closed off and isolated, pushing away everyone that offers a helping hand. The thing is, Vecna is killing people in Hawkins using their emotional fragility to access their minds and explode their bodies. He does that to Chrissy, using her traumas to enter her mind, and after killing her, Max starts to experience the same hallucinations as Chrissy, and then we know that she's next. Except that everyone has a plot armor the size of an elephant, so of course we don't expect anything serious happening to her. We know that in the end she will be fine. So anyways, Vecna gets to her and we get the iconic scene that everyone got obsessed about for months and gave Kate Bush a very tasty amount of money.
If I only could, I'd make a deal with God to avocados for $10.
This scene is not as good as we remember, I am so sorry. It's very well made, it's beautiful and emotional, a masterclass of cinematography, but in this scene I realized something really unpleasant. You see, Vecna was killing people through their minds without even having to be physically present. It's almost like he snaps his fingers and boom, someone dies. So why, in his own territory, he would just stand there throwing rocks at Max? She takes about 5 business days to reach the exit. It's not that hard to finish this target. This little detail showed me that Vecna's powers are and will be for the rest of the show inconsistent. Vecna's introduced to us as the big bad, some kind of final boss of the Upside Down, even more than the Mind Flayer. He's this mysterious figure, but we know since the very first second that he is very powerful. It's a scary presence, a name that inspires fear like Darth Vader or Voldemort. Having an antagonist this powerful is very delicate. There are 2 easy ways to mess this up. You can either make the heroes overpowered out of nowhere, or make the villain inconsistent when it comes to unleashing its full potential and especially incompetent when facing the heroes, and Stranger Things chose the second option. Keep this information for later. The passage of time in this show is something really confusing to me. When I first watched it, I had a hard time understanding how much time had passed since the last chapter of the story, and I believe there are 2 main reasons for that. The first is the time between seasons. We already had waited 2 years to get season 3, and they took another 3 years to release season 4. Obviously, after waiting all of this time, the audience won't even remember what happened in the last season, let alone details like dates and stuff. And the second reason, which is a direct consequence of the first one, is that the kids didn't stop aging. What a lack of commitment from the actors. The kids are not kids anymore, and now we can go all the way back to the beginning of the video when I said that in season 2 we started to experience growing up with the characters, and that this makes the audience more involved. That's completely lost when we're supposed to believe that this bunch of dudes are 14-year-olds. So we have a show that takes an eternity to release a new season and kids that don't look like kids. And somehow this man looks even older than them, because when you have 14-year-olds that look like they're in their 20s, we need the 17-year-old to look like he's in his 30s. You know, for the sake of the truthfulness of this ecosystem. This man is Jason, he's the new Billy, which was the new Steve, because every school needs a bully. Jokes aside, this character is actually very good. My hot take about season 4 is that Jason is the best Stranger Things villain. Like, from the whole show. I really like how the Demogorgon is used in season 1, but as I said before, an irrational monster that acts only on a killer instinct works as a threat for that intimate little story. But we are so far away from intimacy right now.
That's what she said!
Jason is perfect as an antagonist for the Hawkins storyline. He truly believes that he is saving the town from the demons because for him, his girlfriend was killed in some sort of satanic ritual. He's got motivation and purpose, we understand his reasons, and we are led to think if I was in his place, I would probably do the same. That's a good villain. I know he's like an ant compared to how much of a threat Vecna is, but I loved every moment that he was on screen. That's because I hated everything he was doing. I wanted to punch him in the face. I was agonizing every time he managed to interfere with the kids' plans. And that is the most emotional I got with this show in a very long time, which proves my point. Jason was a fantastic addition to the story. Mason Dye's performance is on point, and like that wasn't enough, he is killed off in perfect timing. His mission in this story was completed. If he was kept alive, the show would either ruin the character or make him disappear like Argyle, Susie, most of the kids' parents. There was nothing else for him to do moving forward. Are you listening, Duffer Brothers? That's what you do with a character when his storyline ends and he's got no purpose later on. You get rid of him! So congratulations, you absolutely nailed Jason from beginning to end. Speaking of character additions, let's review our main cast, shall we? We have the same characters as before because everyone is invincible, and we have more new characters because these writers don't know how to stop. So now we have 17 recurring characters that appeared in all 9 episodes of the season and more than 10 others that are relevant in at least 5 episodes. That is so exhausting. And the problem is not the character count itself, because we started the show with 9 main characters and everything worked out perfectly, but the writers don't know what to do with most of these people anymore, so they're mostly tagging along someone else's adventure just to make volume and maybe crack a joke here and there. If the situation is getting out of hand like that, you as the writer have a few options. You either stop introducing new main characters or start writing off the old ones. You see that I didn't state pushing new characters each season just to have someone to kill and pretend your show is a bloodbath as an option? Yeah, that's right, you're not fooling anyone. Speaking of which, I can't go through season 4 without mentioning the one that stole everyone's hearts. Eddie. I really want to dislike the new characters just to validate my point, and although I personally liked him a lot, it was pretty hard to get attached to him, but it's impossible not to like Eddie. He's not afraid of being himself, and I love how he makes fun of everyone that believes that D&D is something diabolical. I mean, he goes around wearing a demon face shirt, he has zero fucks to give. Also, he has a very charming relationship with Dustin. This not apologizing for being myself energy mixed up with the level of acceptance and empathy he has with other people's traces was everything that Dustin needed to grow more self-confidence. Eddie is a very cool guy with a lot of personality, and the good impact he had on the main characters' lives and the story in general makes him exceptional. He is introduced to us as this easily lovable character just to be killed off by the end of the season, and besides him, no one important dies. Wait a minute. Yeah, you heard me right, they did it again. In every season except season 1, they overused this little trope of the disposable lovable character of the season, which consists in introducing a character designed to be loved just to kill him off by the end of the season. They did this with Bob, Alexei, and now Eddie. And that's why I said before that was pretty hard to get attached to him, because once you recognize this pattern and aligns it with the fact that no main character dies like ever, it's impossible not to expect him to be the next body. It's the obvious choice. They do this as an attempt of creating emotion without having to sacrifice anyone. They don't want to make the audience upset or angry, but this is artificial emotion, it gets old really fast. This way the show has conditioned us to 1. Not get emotionally invested in any of the new characters, and 2. Not fear for any of the main characters' lives. Everyone is comically immortal, it's very distracting actually, because not only everyone gets out alive from the most deadly situations, things stopped having consequences altogether. In season 1, a Demogorgon was an absolute beast. It took several heavily armed people and Eleven's powers to defeat. But in season 4, Hopper kills one of them alone with a sword and gets out of it without a scratch. This scene made the Demogorgon look as threatening as a wildlife animal. If you have any type of weapon and knows the basic of how to use it, you're good to go. Hopper also breaks his ankle as a consequence of his prison escape plan, but a few moments later he's already walking normally, he's completely fine. Steve gets ganged up by Demobats in the Upside Down, but he just shakes it off and go home. Joyce and Murray crashed an airplane in Russia and they walk it off like nothing happened. Vecna gets Steve, Robin and Nancy and starts choking them with vines, but he just does that for a few minutes and they simply don't die? When they manage to escape, they just move on with their lives, I guess. You see what I'm talking about? They refuse to kill anyone from the main cast and still have the guts to say that there would be a massive body count just for killing a bunch of side characters no one even remembers the names of. Season 4 ends the exact same way the previous 2 did, with that feeling that something really big and really bad is about to happen, which should be fine, as long as something really big and really bad actually happens. But no! Each season ends this way just for the next one to start with a time skip and everyone doing okay with their lives. And in that matter, season 5 is the worst of all. The last season of Stranger Things was really something. After spending 10 hours of my life watching this season and especially the series finale, the only thing that was left for me to think was, is that it? First of all, taking 10 years to make a 5-season show is a big no-no. I talked about this before, but the amount of time between seasons kills its momentum. When season 5 came out, I had already forgotten most of what happened in season 4. We waited 3 years for this to come out. If you're gonna take 3 years to do 8 episodes of television, you at least gotta be cooking something unbelievable. Actually, it was unbelievable. Unbelievably bad. Season 5 is a mess in terms of quality and writing. The first problem I noticed is the decision of splitting it into 3 parts. That's the reason why I said before that season 5 feels the longest. It's because we had to wait an insane amount of time to watch it all, after already having waited 3 years for the first part to come out. I get why they did this. If the season takes several weeks to come out instead of releasing all of the episodes at once, you keep people engaged and talking about it for a longer period of time. But if that's the case, maybe it's better to release the episodes weekly. We have 8 episodes, so you will keep the audience involved for 2 months without having to create a big cliffhanger at the end of each part. I'll come back to that point in a bit. Last season ended with this scene. Creepy, right? Seems like something really big and really bad is about to happen. Except it doesn't. We were left with this vision, the Upside Down winning against Hawkins and everyone saying there was gonna be a war between the 2 dimensions. Cut to 3 years later and we see this. Blue sky, birds singing and the kids riding their bikes. Like nothing happened! The town was ripped apart, divided in 4 pieces, the portals opened and killed a bunch of people. We were on the verge of Vecna's invasion with the Mind Flayer and an army of Demogorgons, Demodogs, Demobats and whatever other demo animals they decided to invent. But no, why pick it up right where season 4 left off if we can do a time skip of 18 months? I don't know why they do this, honestly. The only plausible reason I can think of is to justify the kids growing up, but they wouldn't need to do that if they released 1 season per year, like normal people do. Since we are not going to start from season 4's ending, let's understand the context of the story. The military put some giant metal band-aids to cover the gate, quarantined the entire town and forced everyone to move on with their lives. Which still doesn't explain what happened to Vecna. He just gave up? He opened the gates and took a nap? How was the military, as incompetent as they are, able to stop the Upside Down invasion from happening? Later on the season we see how little they know about dealing with the Upside Down. I'm not buying any of this. Also, there is this woman. Her name is Dr. K and she is useless. She is running the military experiments in an outpost inside the Upside Down, while she has soldiers in Hawkins looking for Eleven, who is in some hidden place. She got her powers back last season, so she is being trained by Hopper to better control them and reach her full potential. The kids, along with Hopper, are doing search missions in the Upside Down to find Vecna, who disappeared months ago. Hopper infiltrates a military vehicle and gets in and out of the Upside Down with it. How is he planning to kill Vecna in his own territory? I guess we're gonna have to wait and find out. Dustin has the most complex storyline in this season. He's being targeted by Andy and some other nameless guys for trying to keep the Hellfire Club and Eddie's memory alive. Andy was a friend of Jason's, and after his death he took his place as the main school bully, so it's fair to say that Andy is the new Jason, which was the new Billy, which was the new Steve. But you're never gonna be as good as Jason, you little shit. Anyways, they punch Dustin in the face a couple of times and never show up again. Will is still gay, but now he gets some pep talk from Robin, you know, the other gay character, and learns to find value in himself. Speaking of Robin, she's absolutely unsufferable this season. She can't shut the fuck up, and her quirky ramblings, which I'm guessing was supposed to be funny, are only very much annoying. She was so cool in season 3, why did they do this to her? Also, she doesn't do much here either. Her existence got reduced to being Will's gay ship mentor. Max is still in a coma from last season and Lucas is visiting her constantly and playing her song, hoping this will wake her up. Mike is here, doing things. I don't know, this character became so whatever after season 1, he hasn't done much and still not doing much. Nancy, Robin, Steve and Jonathan are working on a radio station, using it as a secret base to help the mission to find Vecna and pass information through the radio transmissions. Something goes wrong with one of the missions and Hopper gets stuck in the Upside Down. And we find out that Will is still heavily connected to the Hive Mind when he is able to see through a Demogorgon's eyes. The Demogorgon in question creates another portal, gets to Hawkins and kidnaps Holly, Mike and Nancy's little sister, and leave their parents seriously injured. Wait, did anyone remember those 3 are siblings? They're barely interact, it's kinda weird. Anyway, Eleven follows the monster through the portal. She can't get to Holly, but she finds Hopper. Later on, they discover what no one suspected at all. Mr. Whatsit, Holly's imaginary friend, is Vecna disguised as Henry. He convinces her that he saved her from the monsters and said that he is going to save her friends as well, but she should never go into the woods, because the monsters live there. Turns out that the only monster in the woods was Max, who is trapped inside Henry's mind. She tells Holly that the place they are right now is one of his memories, and the only safe place is this cave where Henry seems to be unable to enter. Max explained that she's been trapped there for all of her coma time, and when she had a chance to escape, the exit closed in her face. Let's stop here, cause I need to throw some hate on this scene. Run, girl! Why is Max walking calmly, taking her sweet time to live this fucking nightmare, knowing that Vecna is right behind her? It makes zero sense for her to be this unbothered. The music goes running up that hill, not taking a very slow walk up that hill. Listen to what Kate Bush is trying to tell you and run, for God's sakes! Okay, back to the story. Will realizes that his psychic visions are actually him seeing through Vecna's eyes, so they come up with a plan to identify his next target and use the kid as bait, hoping to save all of the kids before Vecna can get to them. The kid in question is Derek, and we love him, you have no option.
Ken? Oh! Eat dirt! Suck my fat one! Jesus,
What?
The Demogorgon assigned to get Derek arrives only to get caught in a bunch of Home Alone booby traps. Nancy shoots the Demogorgon with a tracker and they let him leave, but the monster is able to find the place where they're hiding Derek, and Joyce fights it with an axe. This scene is so cool. Then Nancy, Steve, Dustin and Jonathan run it over with their car and follow it to the Upside Down, where they manage to lose track of it. Congratulations, your plan sucks. Now we have two groups of people stuck in the Upside Down. In one side, Eleven and Hopper. In the other, Nancy, Steve, Jonathan and Dustin. They all find an impenetrable wall that seems to surround the town, and Dustin calculates that the center of the circle is the Hawkins lab, the place where Eleven and Vecna were created. They believe that Holly might be behind that wall, so they have to find a way to bring it down. Wait, didn't they do like a dozen crawls before? How didn't anyone notice this enormous wall before? Hopper captures a lieutenant from Dr. K's army and Eleven enters his mind to try and find what goes on in the Hawkins lab. They discover that Dr. K is keeping someone very powerful behind a locked door with a bunch of sound devices that disables Eleven's powers, so she assumes it's Vecna. She's like 100% sure of it. By the way, apparently that's something that Eleven does now. She assumes stuff and insists on it until proven wrong. It's very weird and kind of annoying. Anyway, she's wrong, obviously. Vecna is going around Hawkins kidnapping children. If he was behind that door, he wouldn't be able to use his powers. But she is unable to think and insists that Vecna is there, so they sneak into the outpost to kill him, only to find that the person behind that door is Eleven's sister from season 2. You know, that character everyone hates? From that episode everyone fucking hates? That's number 8, her name is Kali. And if you loved her in that infamous episode, you will adore her here. She's like 10 times worse and very suspicious. From the very first moment she appeared on screen, I was absolutely sure she was working for Vecna and would double cross Eleven or something like that. If Hopper don't trust her, I don't trust her. But at least she's not here just to be killed off and create artificial emotion. The military very sharply observe that the children are being targeted by some supernatural force. They assume it's Eleven, so they decide to take them all to the same place to protect them. What a coherent idea. Given the win rate they have against Eleven or anything regarding the Upside Down, we have nothing to worry about. We'll have another vision from his fella Henry's eyes and see Holly in a very disturbing situation. She's in some sort of nest and there is place for 12 kids total, so they know Vecna is coming for more children. Knowing how incompetent the military is, our heroes come up with a plan to break the children out of the military base through the tunnels underground, shove them into the buffoon-mobile and take them to a safe place. This show became a Spy Kids movie at this point. They can hack into the military systems, they break into the outposts, they sneak into their vehicles, and all seems so easy. Okay, maybe not that easy. The plan goes wrong because of the absurd amount of flaws in it, they get caught and the Demogorgons arrive to capture the children, and they are not interested in making any other prisoners. As we all know, the army is incompetent.
I may interject, officer. I've seen what's coming. And no disrespect meant, but you and your men can't protect shit!
You're right, delightful Derek. They in fact cannot protect shit. The demos start obliterating everyone in their way and the soldiers start shooting? Really, guys? It's been about 5 years since the first one of these showed up. You have a fucking outpost inside the Upside Down and you still don't know that the only thing that bullets do to Demogorgons is slowing them down a little bit? Every single soldier should have a flamethrower at this point, it's the bare minimum. But since they don't, they fail to protect the children. Who would have thought? The plan to rescue the children was interrupted, so now we have some Demogorgons with Lucas in the tunnels, chasing Robin and Ballhead Dipshit out in the woods, and in the base with the rest of the 500 characters of this show. The person who does the most for the kids here is Mike, finally giving something interesting to do for the first time since season 2. And I must say, what a scene. Mike leading the children to safety and putting himself on the front to protect them while tries to keep them calm was very badass. Speaking of badass, Lucas also does everything he can to save the kids that are with him. He fears nothing. I love this dude. And I want to take this moment to praise this character. Lucas is so cool from beginning to end. It's not like he's carrying the show on his back every season, but he does a lot of amazing stuff for his friends, for his sister, for Max and for himself, and I have a lot of fun every time he's on screen. People got kind of annoyed at him in season 1 for being an asshole to Eleven, but guys, think about it. It's a strange girl they found alone in the woods. She barely speaks, she has psychic powers and seems to be on the run from the government or some shit. I wouldn't trust her either. And once she gains his trust, he becomes the most loyal friend of them all. I'm kinda bothered by how most of his relevant storylines are directly attached to Max, but I think I would also want to be directly involved with my girlfriend at all times. Okay, I'm done. Back to the danger. Since no one there has the power to stop the demos, they take the children back to the Upside Down. The evil one. Vecna then shows shows up in person to end this mischievousness, and he seems to be stronger than ever. Wait, where is Tommy go? After some exposition, because how else will the audience understand the story, he leaves everyone there to die. But when the Demogorgons are about to strike, Will remembers that he's gay. He remembers that pep talk with lesbian Uma Thurman, breaking his emotional walls and unleashing his full potential. He discovers that his connection to Vecna is way stronger than he thought, and he can access his powers, stopping the Demogorgons mid-air and destroying them the same way Vecna did to people in Season 4. So you're telling me surviving a week in the Upside Down in Season 1 wasn't his bravest moment? He had to come to terms with his gayness to unlock his powers. Okay, sure. And as he wipes the blood from his nose in a very cool way, we have the end of the first part. Now I can get back to the point where I talked about dividing the season in parts. The issue for me is that splitting the season with weeks between the parts forces the writing to put a cliffhanger at the end of the last episode of each part, to make sure that people will be excited to come back for more after a month. But that decision made the narrative get kinda messy. Feels like each part was its own season, with build up in the first episodes to some big conflict at the end. But it's very weird because it's a much smaller cycle. It's like watching a 4-episode season, after a month watching another season with only 3 episodes, and then ending the show with a movie. The reveal of Will's powers, for example, could be saved for later, maybe just give some hints here and there and reveal his true potential closer to the final conflict. Wouldn't be out of nowhere, cause we know Will is connected to the Upside Down since the first season, and he spends most of season 5 showing us that he is strongly connected to Vecna and to the Hive Mind. Having powers makes total sense for his character, but making sense is not the strongest suit of this show. At the risk of being repetitive, I have to complain about the stakes one more time. This is the end of this journey, 10 years of storytelling culminating in this very moment. The stakes should be higher than ever. I should be on the edge of my seat every single second of this season, fearing for my favorite characters' lives. Instead, the plot armor only gets stronger and the Upside Down is a fucking joke. In season 1, the Demogorgon was an absolute beast, I said that already, right? And the Upside Down was this horrifying, mysterious place and home to the Demogorgon as far as we knew. Going to the Upside Down was a fucking scary idea. Will spent season 1 there and came back mentally destroyed. Now they spent several hours in there without facing any kind of threat other than humans. That's right, humans are the biggest threat of the Upside Down now. The military has a fucking outpost in there. What is this place, Disneyland? Okay, part 2. Episode 5 begins exactly where the last one ended. Mike is really happy to see that Will is an actual wizard, but Will regrets not acting sooner. Now Vecna has all 12 kids and he convinces them he is the good guy, he's saving them from the monsters and his house is the safest place ever. Holly and Max are still doing their best to leave that shit show and Derek tries to help, but Henry gets to him first and threatens to kill his family if he ever pulls that shit off again. While on the run, Vecna gets to the girls and puts his hands on Max. I mean, not his hands, these tentacle thingies. Fingers? Are those fingers? He puts his fingers on Max. No, that sounds way worse. He wants to kill her, that's what I'm trying to say, he's trying to end her life. But Will uses his powers one more time to enter Henry's mind, breaks his leg and tells them to run. This intervention results in a little mental battle, Henry kicks him out of his mind and Will ends up passing out. This whole sequence had a very scary tone and I think the Will part is very cool, but it's impossible to fear for the characters' lives at this point. I know somehow the girls are going to escape without a scratch, so despite the horror atmosphere and the choking and everything, I end up feeling nothing. Back in the Upside Down, Dustin theorizes that there must be some sort of generator in the Hawkins lab that powers the wall around it, so they have to find and destroy it. They split into 2 groups, Jonathan and Nancy team up on one side and Steve teams up with Dustin on the other to try and find said generator. There is still some bad blood between Steve and Dustin, and in the middle of the mission Steve confronts Dustin about his behavior since Eddie died. He says what Eddie did was stupid, that he just wanted to be a hero and end up saving no one. He's not wrong though. Who did Eddie save with that sacrifice, really? Steve could have chosen a better moment and better words, but it's not like he's lying or just trying to piss Dustin off. But he did piss him off. Dustin attacks Steve for talking shit about his dead friend and this causes them to break their radio, losing communication with the others. Dustin then finds Dr. Brenner's old journals and realizes he was sorely mistaken. The Upside Down is not another dimension as we were led to believe till this moment. It is actually a wormhole connecting Earth with another dimension they call the Abyss, and that's probably where all the creatures in the Upside Down come from. That means that if they destroy the wall, the Upside Down as a whole would be sucked into the void of a space between dimensions. I mean, what? It was already about interdimensional travel, but they decided to throw in another dimension at the last second, and for what? Like the story wasn't already complicated enough. Dustin tries to warn the others about this discovery, but he can't because he broke his radio defending Eddie's honor or whatever. Meanwhile, Nancy and Jonathan found something they believe is the generator they have to destroy, so Nancy does what the writers decided is the one thing she's good at. She shoots it, without even thinking about it for a second, without even trying to talk to Dustin first, she just shoots it. She has a gun and no personality whatsoever, so why not? I'll tell you why not. This disturbance in the force creates a wave of energy that destroys part of the wall, catching Eleven, Kali and Hopper by surprise as they start to get sucked into the nothingness. But Eleven uses her powers to protect them so they can leave through a portal nearby. You know what's odd? There are cars and entire houses getting sucked, but they keep walking towards the portal like it's just some wind. Once again, the main characters remain intact. Maybe not for too long, cause the building around Nancy and Jonathan starts to melt with the influence of the exotic matter. They see themselves with no way to escape, so they start to talk about their relationship problems. In this moment I felt like the Duffer Brothers remembered how to write, cause this scene is probably one of the best in the entire season. They realize that they bonded over the supernatural stuff happening around them and don't have that much in common after all. In a very touching dialogue they laugh at the secrets they had from each other, and Jonathan tells Nancy he was going to propose and that he thought this would save the relationship. The scene ends with them accepting that they don't belong together despite their love for each other, and they break up. Yes, this is a breakup scene, but if you have to come out and clarify, maybe your writing isn't as sharp as you think. How ironic. And that's the perfect moment to kill them both. Kill them. Just kill them. Why aren't they dying? Kill them now. Nope, the exotic matter magically stops and they leave without a scratch for a change. This exotic matter shit just showed up, we know nothing about it, so we just assume that it's stabilized somehow. That's the beauty of introducing new concepts by the end of the story. You don't have time to explain, so you just leave it for the audience to assume stuff. While trying to save Nancy and Jonathan, Dustin shows Steve that his grief for Eddie is way heavier than he thought, and he is afraid of losing him too. And they reconcile!
Stop being so selfish, please. If you go on there, you're gonna die, and I can't deal with it again. You can't die because I can't deal with it again.
Gaten Matarazzo is so fucking good. After that they all reunite and escape together, cause no one ever dies. This is pissing me off so much. Taking advantage of Will's unconsciousness, Vecna talks to him in his mind and tells him that he was his first vessel. He used him in that original capture to work for him as a spy and build the tunnels in Hawkins, and now he'll use the 12 children he captured to bring the Abyss to Earth. How does that work? He didn't care to include that part in his exposition moment. What he did do was get into Will's memories to find Max's body and send a group of Demodogs to kill her. How did he not know that already? How did he know so much about a lot of stuff in Hawkins but didn't have this specific information? Well, that's convenient. Eleven enters Will's mind to wake him up. He warns everyone about the situation and Lucas and Robin race to the hospital to protect Max. At this moment, Robin's girlfriend Vicky learns about the supernatural shenanigans they're involved. When the Demodogs are almost getting to them, Karen explodes an oxygen tank, killing the demos and saving everyone. Don't ask. Back in Henry's mind, Max and Holly find a memory that is the reason why he won't come into the cave. They see a young Henry inside this tunnel. He finds an injured man with a briefcase, but when offering help, the man snaps and shoots Henry in the hand. In retaliation, Henry picks up a rock and kills the man, stealing the briefcase. So unnecessary, by the way. The man was knocked off in the first hit. He could just run. But before they could see what's inside the briefcase, the girls find the exit from that memory and see the portal that leads back to their bodies. Actually, no. That only leads to Max's body, and Holly has to find her own way out using something that connects her to the real world. Let's pause again cause I'm about to freak out. Max sees herself again in the verge of leaving that shithole. The exit is open right in front of her, so she turns to Holly and says, "That's me, good luck out there." Or at least I wish it was just that amount of words, cause they just start talking, standing there with Vecna right behind them. And they talk for hours. This conversation could have happened before, like literally any other moment would be fine. For example, they could have talked about this in the cave when they were coming up with a plan and had time to yap about it. But no, they decided to do that right before the finish line. Did you learn nothing from the hare and the tortoise? First you finish the race, then you can take a nap. They spent 4.5 minutes talking. They exchanged a total amount of 526 words. I counted it myself. That's what this show has done to me. I'm counting words in a 5-minute TV show scene just so I can have the numbers to express how badly it is written. So anyways, Max wakes up and reunites with Lucas and the others in a very emotional and very well acted scene. Congratulations, Sadie and Caleb, you made me get emotional in the middle of this nonsense. While in the subject of nonsense, like the show wasn't already struggling with 5 billion people in the main cast, the kids recruit their science teacher Mr. Clark, who is banging the librarian by the way, and start formulating another plan to rescue Holly, kill Vecna and save the world or whatever. And every time these people are on screen together we have a dimension of how crowded this show is. I mean, look at this scene. There is 17 people in there, and only 3 of them are not main characters. Lucas then remembers the date is November 6th, the anniversary of Will's original capture, and theorizes that Vecna will put his plan in motion that very night. In the middle of some chaos, because, you know, there is 17 people in the room and most of them are trying to speak, Steve comes up with an idea to get closer to the abyss so they can use the radio tower to reach the other side of the wormhole, enter the abyss and face Vecna. Meanwhile, Eleven, Kali and Max will enter Henry's mind to save the children. After that, they explode that exotic matter core that Nancy shot before, closing the wormhole and preventing anything from the abyss from reaching Earth ever again. Before moving on, I would like to complain about this Epiphany followed by explaining the idea with props trope. They really liked this one, didn't they? It's so overused throughout the entire season and it's so annoying because it feels very artificial. Every time they need to solve any kind of logic issue, it's the same script. A character hear one specific word or see one specific thing and boom, suddenly they become a genius, the plan comes to mind and they need to explain it using some dumb analogy with objects from their surroundings while the rest of the group finish each other's
sandwiches.
That's what I was gonna say.
They do it like a million times and I think it's part of the dumbed down the script orders Netflix gave them. You know, so people can watch while scrolling their TikToks. And the writers didn't know how to do this in any other way, so they really wormed this one out. Kali tells Eleven that Dr. K has done something other than getting in and out of vehicles. She tried to use her blood to create more superpowered children, and there were a bunch of pregnant women in the Upside Down's lab. She says that Dr. K continued Dr. Brenner's experiments, and by killing her, another scientist would just pick the experiments up where she left off. So after killing Henry, they both need to be destroyed with the Upside Down to end this cycle. Kali said that, she just spelled it out. And that's another problem that comes with that dumbing down thing. By this point, we figure that Eleven's story will probably end with a big sacrifice, but neither her or the audience had any space whatsoever to come to that conclusion because Kali had to say it so the people who are not paying attention can get it. Let me tell you this one thing, writing dialogue like this is very disrespectful to the audience. You don't trust anyone's intelligence, so you have to have a character saying every little detail out loud. Screw the people not paying attention, screw the ones who are doom scrolling their phones while watching. There are a lot of people paying attention and I know that I'm not the only one bothered by this. But hey, they need that sweet little dollars that come from people who pays Netflix just to have something playing on the background while doing something else. Okay, this next scene requires some attention because people on the internet made a lot of noise about this, mainly due to prejudice and lack of interpretation. Right before the big final battle against the forces of evil, Will gathered everyone and came out to them as a misogynist.
I don't like girls.
I mean gay, he's gay. Big surprise. He sits in front of his friends and family, and some people he just met, and talks about how he is just like his friends in most aspects, but he is also different. He never uses the word gay, probably because this is the 80s and the word was mostly used as a slur at the time. It's a very nice scene, it's a moment of deep breath from all of the craziness that came before and will come after. Despite the amount of people involved, this scene is so personal, I could almost feel the intimacy I miss so much from season 1. Noah Schnapp's interpretation is very charming, you can feel how much this storyline in particular is important to him, and everyone hated it. A lot of people hate it just for the sake of homophobia, like having a gay character automatically turns the show into something bad. Why do everything need to be an agenda, they say. And I agree, why do everything need to be an agenda? Why can't a character just be gay like the normal thing it is? You are turning everything into an agenda because you treat the subject like one. If you just stop being stupid a little bit and try to see the scene for what it is, you might agree with me. And there is another group of people that are not hating it because of quote-unquote gay agenda. They just think the scene was too long and unnecessary, that it made no sense. I agree that they could have chosen a better moment to do this, but besides that, are we watching the same show? Will's storyline from the very first episode of the show is about being different. In seasons 1 and 2, that's easier to understand. He was made different because of all the supernatural stuff happening to him. He was kidnapped, traumatized, etc. But in season 3, he struggles with the fact that he is not growing up in the same pace as his friends. All the things he's been through stole part of his childhood from him. So he wants to play Dungeons and Dragons while his friends want to go to the mall and have girlfriends. He tries to make things go back to the way they were before he was taken to the Upside Down, but that's not possible. He was alone in the Upside Down, alone when the Mind Flayer took over his body, and now alone socially. He feels left out and fights to find out who he is. In the same episode, right before his big coming out discourse, Will tells us why he needed to do this. Vecna got into his mind and saw his worst nightmare: abandonment. Will feared that if he came out, his friends and family would reject him and set him aside again. He didn't want to feel alone, and Vecna was using this against him. Like I said, it's the 80s, a teenager coming out is already hard nowadays. I can only imagine how it was at the time. Will came out to his loved ones to take this weapon out of Vecna's arsenal. But then you ask me, if that was the whole reason for that scene, why didn't Vecna even try to do something about that? Why take so much time just to not mention it again? Well, here comes the lack of interpretation that I mentioned before. Will came out to everyone and everyone embraced him, so his fear of abandonment was gone. Vecna can't use it against him because there is nothing to be used. So why did he come out to everyone like that? To save time, there is a war about to begin, and I don't know if you're paying attention to anything I've been complaining in this video, but there is a shit ton of characters! I only wanted to talk about this in detail because I've seen a lot of people on the internet using these exact arguments, and representation is always a delicate terrain to step on. The episode ends with the execution of the big plan. Mr. Clark and Erica hack into the radio frequency that opens the gate to the military base, get in with a truck loaded with kids and teenagers, and Nancy once again gets possessed by the spirit of Rambo and kills the soldiers guarding the base. Let me repeat, she shot and killed a bunch of trained soldiers while on top of a moving truck. I am 100% certain that most of these soldiers have a career in the army longer than her entire life. Did I mention that making sense is not the strongest suit of this show? Anyway, after that tomfoolery, they managed to enter the Upside Down, thus finishing the second part of the season. And now, the moment everyone was waiting for. 10 years-ish of storytelling led to this very moment. The finale. I wanna start by saying that I don't think the ending is as awful as most people seem to believe, but I don't think it's that good either. It's good and bad at the same time. Let's take a look. The final episode begins right after episode 7. Our heroes just enter the Upside Down, they go straight to the radio tower and wait for the other side of the wormhole to come closer so they can reach the abyss. Meanwhile, in Hawkins' lab, Butthead plants the explosives and Hopper helps Eleven and Kali taking Max into Henry's mind to try and save the captive kids. But when they reach the children, Vecna appears to Hopper. He tells him about Eleven's plan to sacrifice herself and tricks him into breaking the water tank she was using to amplify her psychic signal, pulling everyone out of Henry's memories. This scene was so cool, by the way. I didn't believe even for a second that Hopper actually shot Eleven, but it's a very well made scene and the tone is so scary. With Eleven, Kali and Max out of Henry's mind, it's up to Holly to guide everyone to the exit. Back in the Upside Down, the military have them cornered, but Eleven kills all the soldiers like she should be doing from the beginning. But Kali gets shot in the crossfire and Hopper takes an extra minute to bring that first aid kit, so unfortunately she dies. I mean, unfortunately for who, I didn't even like this girl. She was in one terrible episode from 9 years ago and then brought back just to act suspicious as fuck and die? Why do I have the feeling that this is the only character death we're gonna see in the entire episode? Back in the Abyss, by getting closer to Vecna's nest, Will is able to tap into his mind and see his memories. Now we finally get to see what was in the briefcase. It's a rock. Seems like this rock is a piece of the Mind Flayer or some shit like that, it wasn't very clear. And when Harry got it in his hand, it invaded his body, gave him powers and corrupted his mind. Will sees Harry as a victim and tries to appeal to his humanity, saying that he still can do good and help them stop the Mind Flayer, but he declines. He still wants to take over the world, and thank God the protagonist's discourse didn't work on him, cause this trope is so annoying. I like it better when the villain is not redeemable, and let's be honest, this kid was already corrupted to the bone way before the Mind Flayer. Speak of the devil, Vecna's lair reveals to be the Mind Flayer itself, which wakes up in a form bigger and stronger than ever. Eleven and Hopper have another emotional talk, because people like to pour their emotions out in the Verge of War, and Eleven leaves to the Abyss after saying goodbye. This is the moment, the big climax, the final battle is gonna be so good! Is that it? Last time we saw the Mind Flayer was in Season 3 finale. It was in smaller scale and the battle happened on Earth, in other words, outside of its territory, and that battle was longer. The Season 3 final battle lasted a bit more than 9 minutes, but the Mind Flayer was a threat for about a third of the episode, from its first appearance to the actual battle, compared to 8.5 minutes in Season 5. Come on guys, be serious, are you really telling me that this is the final battle? Of the entire show. One single Demogorgon in Season 1 was more work than this, it was way too easy. And the battle was frustrating, not only because of how short and easy it was, but because of a problem I think I didn't even mention in this video. Stakes! No one fucking dies, the villains are all stupid and incompetent, the Mind Flayer's legs are 1,000,000 meters long but somehow a bunch of teenagers can outrun it. We have 2 fake out deaths in this scene alone, and I felt nothing in any of them because, let's be honest, we know everyone's gonna be fine in the end. We, as the audience, know that there is no chance for the evil to win in this episode. That's the series finale and the battle is already happening halfway through the episode. We don't have much space to work stuff out after this. So why not give it a little more spice? Give the Mind Flayer a little more time to be intimidating and make Vecna a little bit more threatening by letting them kill 1 or 2 main characters, aka the ones we actually care about, so we can feel the weight of this moment. I think that's the word that describes Stranger Things' final battle. Weightless. But Joyce decapitating Vecna was pretty dope. I found it very poetic with everyone standing around her as she gives one strike after the other, finally being able to let all the fear out and avenge her son. Even if the battle was all different and better, this is how it should have ended. The final battle sucks, but it ends perfectly. Now let's take a moment to think about that. How is this perfect ending of the battle again? With Vecna getting killed. So why bring back the Mind Flayer at all? Vecna was introduced in Season 4 in a way that led us to believe that he was one step further, even stronger than the Mind Flayer, and that is proven when he actually wins by the end of Season 4. So why use the Mind Flayer when you can just have a battle against Vecna, which is already proven to be more threatening, more powerful, and 1,000,000 times more interesting as a character? It should have been everyone ganging up on him with a very strategic plan to defeat him. Instead, we had Eleven and Vecna throwing each other around with their minds for about 90 seconds. Or you could bring Jason back, he was so cool. And not with this shitty little street fight, cause right after that comes what is some of the best content this show has ever presented. I'm not joking. With the evil defeated, our heroes activate the bombs in the Upside Down and come back to Earth, only to be greeted by Dr. Useless and her inconvenient army. But someone is missing. Where is Eleven? Everyone looks at the portal and there she is, ready to die. When someone important finally dies, it's not a kill, it's just a sacrifice. They really don't want anyone getting killed. But hey, she's dead, a win's a win. And since it's over for her, I need to talk about this. Girl, what happened to you? The amount of cosmetic procedures Millie Bobby Brown got in her face completely killed her acting. Her face is flat and hard like a rock, her mouth almost doesn't move. I don't know if she was already sick of playing this character and kinda did some bad acting on purpose, but I think actors should pay more attention to what they do with their faces. It's literally their work tool. Okay, I addressed the face. You can relax now. But she can't, you know, because of the Botox. Cut to 18 months later and everyone is moving on with their lives. The town is now rebuilt as the military left them alone. Jonathan and Robin went to college, Nancy is a journalist, and Steve is what he was born to be. A mother. They share a moment talking about the old times and make a pact to remain in one another's lives no matter what. Hopper and Joyce are now engaged and planning to move to somewhere closer to the beach. The kids all graduate high school together and Dustin gives his valedictorian speech the way Eddie said he would do. They are invited to a party, but Mike has a better idea. They all play a final game of Dungeons and Dragons where Mike shares with us the next steps of these characters. Dustin goes to college and kickstart his brilliant future, but keeps in touch with his friends. Lucas and Max continue to date and start building a life together. Will moves to New York where he feels free to be himself and express his sexuality. And Mike is the storyteller. He pursues a career as a writer inspired by his adventures. When they finish their game and leave for the last time, Holly goes downstairs with her friends to start their own D&D adventure. Mike looks back to them and leaves us with the nostalgic feeling of the closure of a show we've been watching and loving for 10 years. This is the perfect ending. Even though the show should have ended in season 1 or season 2 at best, we have to work with what we are given, and I think this was a very nice, comforting way to end this story. It feels cozy. I wish more shows had that tone in their endings. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that I skipped a very important part of the finale. It was on purpose because it was the only bad part of this last hour of Stranger Things. When Mike is telling us about the future of the characters, he shares a theory about Eleven's death. He says that he thinks she's alive, that Kali's death was fake, and she helped Eleven creating an illusion so she could escape. He says that this is just a theory, but he chooses to believe. And that pissed me off. I know this is just a character creating a theory to cope with his girlfriend's death, and I truly believe Eleven is actually dead. But what if she's not? This scene gives space to an open ending. Even in the final moments, when they have a little bit of guts to kill one single main character, it's an uncertain death and open to interpretation. At this point in the story, it's kinda late to kill any of the other kids. If they were planning on killing Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Max, or Will, they would have done that already. If any of these characters died in the finale, it would feel unfair. Why do any of the other kids get to have a future? But Stranger Things was supposed to be a cruel horror story, so I wouldn't mind having some more people on the body count. I personally believe that they had space to kill Nancy, Robin, and Jonathan more than one occasion. I didn't mention Steve among the teenagers because him, Dustin, and Lucas are the only characters that I actually didn't want to see dead. But they didn't want to upset anyone, so they went with the safest, most coward choice possible. Everyone is alive and well, the audience is happy, the end. Except, maybe the audience is not that happy. Right after the episode came out, the internet exploded. People were talking about it non-stop, and a bunch of lunatics started something called the Conformity Gate. Conformity Gate is something that came up mainly on TikTok and Twitter. Apparently it was created by a group of people that wanted the Mike and Will ship to be true and got really upset about the ending. But these shippers are not the only ones who got upset, so the Conformity Gate was growing really fast. I still don't understand if it's a movement or a conspiracy theory. For me it looks more like a cult. People are dead serious about this. They believe that the ending we got is not real, that's not what happened, and it's called Conformity Gate because in the epilogue everyone would be conforming to this distorted reality. The theory is based on a bunch of inconsistencies in the show, especially in the last episode, and they said there was a secret 9th episode that was set to come out in January 7th. That's right, the ending was so frustrating that the fans gaslit themselves into believing that that was not the real ending. And the theory kinda makes sense, they have a lot of evidence to support this. For starters, the military just left them alone after they committed a bunch of crimes and killed over 100 of them. The audience in the graduation scene is all sitting like Henry and there is a completely blank poster in the back. Mike's resemblance to Henry in the flash forward and a lot of people using Henry's haircut. The final shot with Mike going upstairs looks like the Truman Show poster, and the D&D campaign in season 1 is 10 hours long, which is the exact runtime of season 5. Also, when Mike puts his binder up, the letters in the middle form XA lie. Like, Dimension X is a lie? I'm sorry, this is so funny. But the biggest of all is the number 7. In that first adventure, Will rolls a 7, leading to their defeat. The die in the end credits of the finale also rolled a 7. There is 7 seconds between lightning strikes in the Upside Down. The screen goes black for 7 seconds when Steve falls from the tower, and took 7 days for Will to be found after he was kidnapped in season 1. All of that is the reason why people thought the secret final episode would come out in January 7th, 7 days after the finale. At some point, Lucas looks right at the camera and says that he doesn't believe in coincidences. But I do! This is just a polite way to sit in events like this. This haircut was trending in the 80s. The blank poster is just a mistake, I guess. And as for the adventure being 10 hours long and all of this stuff with number 7, coincidences! I think they just really like the number 7. You have to keep in mind that the Duffer Brothers are not good writers. And if you didn't notice that after listening to me yapping about it for the last hour, it's okay, I'm not gonna do anything about it. Just kidding, I'm gonna give you evidence! I'm about to prove to you that the Duffer Brothers are in fact bad writers. First of all, they said that they don't even like writing, their passion is directing, but writing Stranger Things was the way they found to do that. If they knew what they were doing, don't you think their show would have a little less problems? A lot of stuff was revealed in that Netflix documentary called One Last Adventure. Like the fact that the script for the final episode wasn't done yet while they were shooting the season, and in one take you can see a bunch of tabs open in their computer and ChatGPT was there. Seems like they used AI to help write the script. That actually explains a lot. Also, they really wanted to over-explain everything and used this last season to give as much exposition as they possibly could, and still left a shit ton of plot holes that we're gonna talk about in a minute. Out of nowhere, they decided to retcon most of the story like it wasn't confusing enough already, so they needed to use most of the episodes to do some lore dump. Everyone have to explain everything. But why do we need to know everything? If you remember in the beginning of the video, I said that I don't care about what is the Upside Down or Eleven's origin story, and we don't need all the answers. Based on that, you must know how I feel about the directions they took with the story and the amount of exposition. You know, unknown horrors beyond our comprehension get a lot less horrifying when they're known and made comprehensible. Speak of the unknown, there is a lot of questions that no one knows how to answer. Why did Vecna stop his attack after season 4? Why did the military give up after the Upside Down was destroyed? What happened with the pregnant women in the Upside Down? What is that exotic matter? Was it created by Dr. Brenner or did he just discover it? If the Upside Down is a wormhole, did Eleven open it when she defeated Henry, or was it already there and she just created a portal? How is the stone in Henry's memory connected to the Mind Flayer if all of that was years before Eleven opened the portal to the Upside Down? Who is the man in the cave and how does he have that stone? If the memory inside the tunnel is what gave Henry his powers and he refuses to see himself as a victim of the Mind Flayer and wants it to conquer the world or whatever, why is the memory so traumatic that he can't even enter the cave? Should be his favorite memory. If Henry was taken by Dr. Brenner as a child, how did he go to high school? And why didn't Joyce, Hopper or any of the other parents remember Henry if they went to high school altogether? Why did Vecna need 12 kids specifically, and what was his plan besides crushing the worlds together? Why didn't Will die with Vecna since he was agonizing in pain when a Demogorgon was on fire? Where were the demo creatures during the final battle? How did Max graduate after being in a coma for 2 years? What happened to Derek's family? Are they still in the barn? What happened to Susie and Vicky? And that's just what comes to my mind right now. You can find a gazillion others if you take the time to research. And since we're talking about research, I think I can answer some of that questions. For starters, the military didn't do anything in the end because their mission was a complete fail. It was a secret mission, and since they didn't want to become worldwide news, they let the kids go, probably even paid them just to shut the fuck up and shut down the project altogether. The pregnant women in the Upside Down are dead. Simple as that, sorry. There were no Demogorgons, Demodogs or Demobats in the final battle because the Mind Flayer used them to create its physical form, like it did in Season 3. Max graduated with the others because the school must have some sort of program to help in this kind of situation. I mean, none of the kids had a regular year in their school life, so if we follow that logic, none of the characters should be graduating. Susie and Dustin broke up at some point. Long distance relationships are very hard, and I'm pretty sure it was way harder in the 80s. Same goes for Vicky. Robin went to college and the relationship didn't survive. Also, an open ending with this much unanswered questions is a very smart move to keep people talking about the show for a very long time. It would be really awesome if all of this was true. But it's not. Those are just theories using common sense or crumbs of information the show gave us to try and explain what the fuck is going on. Gaten Matarazzo said that Dustin and Susie broke up between seasons, the Duffers said that Vicky and Robin broke up off screen. The military stuff, if it happened cause it was not addressed by anyone so nothing is confirmed, was off screen. All of the school graduation extravaganza happened, you guessed, off screen. At this point I think the whole show is happening off screen. Do you want me to guess what is happening or do you want me to write the show for you? How can you write a show with this much exposition and still fail to address the most simple plot points? But the one that pisses me off the most, do you wanna know the real reason why there was no Demogorgons in the Abyss? The Duffer brothers said that Vecna wasn't expecting to be attacked, so he just didn't bring any Demogorgon. And since the population of the Abyss is very slim, you don't see a Demogorgon walking around very often. but they're there somewhere. What do you mean they're there somewhere? You wrote the story, you decide where they are. I think the demo creatures read the script for the finale and were like, no fucking way, I'm out. To sum up, all of the plot holes can be explained with one answer: they didn't think about it. Like I said, it would be really cool if Stranger Things was this masterpiece full of depth in which all of the details matter and the fans can create theories, but the actual story is even better than the theories, and it was something like that in the beginning, but it's not anymore. The Duffer Brothers just had an insanely good idea for one horror mystery short story, but when the story started to grow bigger, they showed themselves as what they really are: bad writers. And Stranger Things went from perfect television to what it was at the end: a frustrating mess.